So I'll address this out loud instead of just reading it or typing it, just because I think it's an important question. So Steel Suppository is asking, so his question is, I was wondering if you could tell us the sort of a flow chart of the top 4 or 5 decisions in order of priority, that I think is important during the course of gameplay. And he says that it would be helpful rather than just going on instinct and limited experience. And so my response to that is twofold. One is that a lot of the game is based upon experience, and that's sort of unfortunate. And that's this thing that, because I have played 38,000 games, it's easy for me to recognize situations because I know that I've seen them before. I'm comfortable with them. And one of the things that we talk about all the time is bully, right? If bully, then bully. And the thing is, or the problem that I think that most people have, isn't necessarily that they don't have the testicular fortitude to do it, but that they don't recognize when they can bully. And it's like, how often have you seen like a couple of tier 10 heavies, like you get like an E5 and an E100 on a corner, right? And they're around the corner from, like, let's say it's even an intimidating tank like a waffle or something like that, right? You still have the advantage, right? If you're in an E5 and an E100 against one waffle, and let's just say that they're the last people in the game, you have to understand that that's an advantage for the E5 and the E100. That is not an advantage for the waffle there. And recognizing a lot of those situations just comes from experience. Like, I know when I can bully. Like, let's pull up this last game and see if I can remember something from it. Okay, the Fiery Salient is probably not going to be a good example just because our team was really campy. Oh, but here, like this T54 lightweight game. So let's go back and we'll look at this T54 lightweight game and we'll break it down a little bit. And alright, so in this game we're doing a couple of different things. And so what I'm doing right off the bat is I'm spawning down this middle, because I know that anybody who spawned over here and heads this way, I can mostly spot them. And anyone who spawns over here and heads this way, I can mostly spot them. And so this gives me some intel about whoever crosses in order to get to one direction. So one of the things that you can take away from that is, like, from this position, when you move forward, if you spot nobody going in one direction, like if the only people that you spot are going west, let's say from this east side, then you know that they're going to have more people over here and less people in the field. If you see about the even amount go each way, which is what we end up seeing, then you know that they're more or less split evenly. High camo tanks can throw this off a little bit, but for the most part, I know what I'm looking for here. So we get their Charioteer, which is going middle. We get the T-34, which is going west. So those are both guys that were on the east that have headed this way. Right, and then we know the WZ-120 went east from the west side. So that means 2 left the east and 1 went to the east, right? 2 went east and 2 left the east. Right, so we know the numbers. I mean, it's not a lot of intel, right? But we know that, for example, if we did not see this WZ-120 and the Panther 88 go this way, or if, let's say, we saw them both come west, right, then we know that they're going to be more stacked on this side. But at least the net flow of tanks in one direction to the other was 0, right? And we also know that 2 guys pushed up in the middle. That's something that we need to be aware of, but that's not something that is critical, right? They're not a huge threat to us from this distance, and I don't have to sit out here, and there's no artillery to bomb me out. And even if there was, I could just draw a spot behind here and then get out. And I will get out later. But this is just getting early intel, which you'll do in a lot of light tanks. It's a trap! A lot of faster tanks, the medium tanks as well. And so we have some intel, right? And you always want to look, and then this is the pivotal 30 seconds, 60 seconds into the game. Look and see what your team doing. About a third of our team went west here, right? We've got very little on the east, and we've got about a third of our team still in the base. Right, and then there's no reason for me to sit here and try to trade with a Leo and a Charioteer and all that, so I might as well get off of this side. And so all that I'm looking for here is a way through, right? What I try to do a lot in most of my tanks is try to push forward for my team. A light tank is not a tank that you really want to push forward, but you can sort of scout out, right? You just want to poke around on the fringes. I don't want to poke out here on this one line until I drop spot from this WZ-111. And then I'm just going to poke out and see if I get lit. And then if I don't, then I can move forward, right? And I know they haven't moved anybody up on this F line yet, but I know that they have, right? I know that they have guys in this middle, so I need to be careful about how I play this. We got some firepower back here, we got some firepower right here, but we haven't really pushed into them like at all. And so this charioteer is going to eventually back up to where I can shoot him. And 34-3 is all the way on the other side, so I can actually shoot him. Right, but there's sort of a weak spot right here, and so generally what I do in any fast tank, like if I was in a medium, I'd be doing the same thing right now, is you want to find those wrinkles in the defense, those weakness, those weak spots where you can get through and exploit them in some way, get shots on the sides of other tanks and things like that. It's also important, like if I was in a heavy tank, I would still be in the same general position, trying to sort of push this side. And this is what I talk about a lot, like in the game, is that you can cause deflections in defense by pushing forward. Like if you think back to that Stalingrad game that we played earlier, I'll show you what I mean by the deflection. But you can basically you can exploit weaknesses in their defenses by pushing forward into these little seams, right? On the furthest person forward, I don't really have a whole lot of backup. Our guys are back in here, but they've because of the way they've set up their defense, right? Their defense doesn't account for me being right here. So nobody technically knows that I'm right here still. And then I'm watching this because these guys can push in, right? So I'm waiting for this opportunity to push this T-30 if these guys push in. But then look at what happens. These guys actually push east. So when they start pushing east, I'm not going to try to take on a T-30 by myself, right? They're pushing towards this T-34-1, right? And we've got this position where, see how there's sort of like this C shape here? Right, so we're starting to get encapsulation on this position right here. So what we want to do is we want to be able to push either this 34-1 or if we have this T20, right? You push down towards this charioteer. That's what we want to do. The rest of our guys, they're not concerning themselves with the T30, and that's fine at this point, right? You don't need to concern yourself with that T30. So all I have to do right now is just push around with these guys, and they've been pretty tentative to this point.
It's a trap!
Which is fine. And then, so we look at their defense, right? So their defense, this is what I call like a layered defense. So see where this T-30 is at? None of these guys behind him can help him. See where this T-34-1 is at? None of these guys can help him. So you don't want to have layers to your defense, because basically what happens is that like these guys will push into this T-30 and kill him, and these guys can't do anything about it. And that's why I always say that you never want to be waiting for the guy in front of you to die before you actually, are in a position to shoot things. So you want to be in a position where you can actually help these guys. But we need to, when we look at this, right, they're starting to push in through the field, which they should, right? It's 2.5 minutes into the game. We literally sent, where these guys are right now, this is as far forward as we've been in the field, right? So we haven't really broached this C line even. So they've got enough numbers to win the field. We've got more than enough numbers to win the town. We just need to actually do it, right? You can't have an IS-8 back here 2.5 minutes into the game, right? So you got to be willing to break some eggs, and a lot of that means just pushing it here and getting shot. And it's okay. It's okay to get shot. I mean, ideally you want to put yourself into a situation where you know you're going to win, right? And so this T-34-1 was already down a shot of damage. Even taking that shot from that 110, I've got more than enough health, right? So this is simple math now. As long as I don't get shot by anybody else, I can out DPM the 34-1. And so this is just straight bully, right? He's got no chance. He's going to be able to damage me with his next shot because I don't really have any armor. But as long as I aim, right, I should be able to kill him. Ideally, he wouldn't ammo rack me, but, that happens. Right? And then again, it's about being in a scene. So like I'm more or less surrounded by their team, right? They've got a bunch of guys on this J line. They've still got a bunch of guys on the 6 line. But nobody really has shots on me, right? And in order to get shots on me, they have to YOLO in such a way that they have to cross through firing lanes that my team can theoretically easily defend. The sort of bad news, well, at least our T10 is going, or our IS-8 is going back. T10. I guess I should call it the T10 now. Whatever. But see how like there's still a few guys here that aren't really in position to do anything. This T-34 and the Strapanzer still aren't in a position to actually shoot anything. These guys at least killed that T-30, which is good. And it's just a question now of how honest do they keep this flank, and how much of an annoyance can I be from where I'm at. This guy is just he's like, what? Light tank what? Let's see how these guys are now they're putting pressure on this side. So what I need to do is try to get into a position where I can get some free damages. I wanted to make sure that T-34 couldn't shoot me. I couldn't do it there, but I can use this little pass through here. Right, and that basically just frees them up. See how this column is shifting over there? Okay, fine, no problem. They should be able to take him out. Not too worried. And then I thought the T-34 was still going to sit in place, but now he's moving forward, and then so he shoots me in the face. So that was a bad call. But our team was moving a little bit too slow, so you need to sometimes expedite those things. And it's the same thing on that following game, right? On that Prokhorovka game. Sometimes you need to expedite things on your side. You need to win your side before you lose the other side. And there's a slow battle of attrition on that's going to occur on this side now. But now look at what we have now. It's basically 4v1, and then there's a 5v4, right? 5v6, 4v6, whatever. Right? And so that's what you want, but you want this to happen faster. And there were so many opportunities for our guys to be more aggressive over here. And that's really what I'm looking to do, is I'm looking to sort of create opportunities for my team. I'm trying to exploit seams for my team. And so what I was talking about earlier as far as creating deflections in the defense, like if we go back to that Stalingrad that we had earlier today. No, that's the first time we played that replay. Like, that was literally 2 games ago, though, Ravi, so... I mean... It wasn't that long ago. And so this is a similar game, where what we're going to do is we're going to push forward into this area right here, right? We've got a composition advantage. We've got a much heavier comp than them, much bigger gun, like a much more offensive comp than them. We just need our tank destroyers to not camp, and we should be able to push through this side. Normally, even in the T-54 prototype, I'll still go east, but in this comp, what I'm going to do is I'm going to head west, because what I want to be able to do is make it so that our team actually pushes forward. And then this is a very bad miss. So that you don't want to do this. It's a trap. That was a pretty bad miss. Like, I wasn't expecting him to just roll through there, but I still should have gotten that shot off. I tried to snap it a little bit too much. And then see, notice how I'm basically just ignoring him, because he's not a threat to me. He's not a threat to the team. I'm not gonna chase after him. I'm not gonna stare at him. Right? I need to keep my eyes forward here. And so what we see when we roll into this game, and like I said, what I always try to do is 30, 60 seconds to the game, look and see where your team has gone, right? As you're rolling into your alpha position, look and see where your team has gone. Most of our team has gone west. We've actually sent a decent number east, but most of the key tanks that we need, right, we've sent west, right? So what I'm looking at is the E75, the STI, the IS-7's still in the back, but he's coming this way, the E4. So we got big guns, we've got good armor, and what we're looking at is this YOLO CDC, who, alright, whatever. He's not going to be in this game for a little bit unless he sticks on that corner. Right, we got a T-69 and a Bat Chat in front of us. That's not exactly formidable. But again, we've got the composition mismatch on this side. So if we use our armor, our weight to our advantage, we can just bully through this side. It's just a matter of allowing your team to be brave enough to push forward. And so we're going to wait here for a little bit. Because what I don't want to do, see how far back, and this is just like in that Ents game where we were talking about, you know how their T-30 was up in that, he was moved up, but their 110, the Conway, T-34, all those other guys were way back. They're in a position where they can't actually shoot them. So if somebody pushes into the area where I'm at right now, see these guys right here? They can shoot them. But if I'm up here and they push into over here, right, these guys, none of these guys can help. And so you don't want to outrun your coverage, outrun your blocking in that sense. I guess you always want to outrun your coverage, but I guess it's a bad football metaphor. You don't want to outrun your blocking in this, or overrun your blocking in this case. So I'm gonna wait and let them move up to me a little bit after I get shot. And really high rolled by that IS-3. 468 is a magnificent roll. But that's neither here nor there. All right, okay, so now the E-75 moved up. I actually wanted the E-75 to move up on this side because he could really just bully this IS-3. But at least he moved up, right? Our E-4 moved up to this side over here, which is fine, right? There's not a whole lot in front of him. The IS-7 is coming all the way around the outside. Their Leo 1 pushed forward, and that's fine. I was under the impression that we were going to lose this side, given the comp, if everybody dispersed to where they normally would. So I'm still waiting at this point, right? And basically what I'm waiting for is I'm waiting for these guys to move up. Because like what these guys should be thinking right now is that really they don't have shots on anything. Like short of their team literally just driving down this corridor right here like that, they're not gonna, these guys back here aren't really gonna have any shots. And so
it's a trap.
You need to wait for them to realize that and actually move up a little bit. Which they sort of do, right? The IS-7 and the IS-3 moved up over behind the E-4, which is fine, right? Because that's going to take a lot of pressure. So there's basically two corridors. There's this sort of 1-2 corridor here, and then there's this 3-line corridor here. There's some overlap, but not a whole lot. They actually changed these buildings to make them into more alley-like. Not that that should surprise anybody. That's like Wargaming's solution to everything. And so I decided to push forward here, mostly because our team hasn't moved forward to my liking. And so what I want to do is I just want to secure this next area here. And so this is a little bit of a risky play, because I can get pushed here.
It's a trap!
So that was a spectacularly low roll, so karma. He rolled like 470, and then he rolled 330. Right. But now I'm in a position where they still have to YOLO around to get to me. And all that I'm really hoping is that these guys sack up, right? We know what they have, and they know what they have in front of them. They've got a couple of 8s. There's a Bat Chat there. The Bat Chat's a little bit threatening. They got an E-75 that just appeared, and the T-69 that they know about. Like, these guys could very, very easily win this corridor right here. And then all I'm doing is slowing them down right here. There's this T-54 coming in the side, but that's really not that much of a threat. They've got more guys on this side, my feeling is. And so I'm more worried about losing the other side than I am about losing this side. And then see how this E-75 is pushing up now? And so this is what I was talking about in terms of deflection. This E-75 just moving up here, right? Literally taking 0 damage to drive up this corridor, right? Because there's nothing there to stop him. What he's going to do is he's going to distort this defense, because basically right now they've got a couple guys camping over here and they've got a couple guys camping over here. I cannot break this in a T-54 Proto, especially since I've already taken 2 shots of damage from the IS-3. But watch what happens when this E-75 rolls around this corner right here. Other than him shooting the IS-3 on the move and tagging, right? This IS-3 is now like, crap, I'm boned. I'm completely boned. There's nothing I can do. What he probably should have done is just keep driving in towards me. But that's fine. And like, watch what he does. He doesn't even try to shoot the E-75. Not even trying. He's just completely gave up on trying to. Okay, there. Now he tried to shoot the E-75. So I got a shot. There's a SP-1C behind the E-75, but I can't really help him with that. The SP-1C is not going to kill him, so it's not that big of a deal. So this E-75 now is basically pushing these guys all off their block. You can think of it like a big-ass offensive lineman. And he's just pushing these guys back, and he's just he has the ability to just straight bully, right? He took some damage from the SP-1C, but that's pretty much all the damage he's going to take here. And he's just going to own these guys otherwise. And it's about recognizing those situations and creating that for yourself. He's giving this Tiger 2 way too much side, but whatevs. But just the act of him moving forward here caused such a deflection in their defense because they had to deal with him. And that's when I'm talking about finding those seams and just bullying. And it's about recognizing those opportunities, especially like composition mismatches and things like that. A lot of that is just experience, but a lot of it is just sort of common sense. Like that E75 should have been like salivating. He should have been thinking, oh my god, I'm just gonna straight bully these guys. Right? And then the bully is complete. Right? And so you look at what happened over here, and we actually traded a little better than I thought. I thought they would have pressed a little bit more strongly over here, especially considering that we had a lot of our big tanks on the west. But it turns out that they didn't trade that well on these. But look what happened here on the west. Straight bully. But look how long it took. It took 3 minutes, right? All that E75 had to do was literally just drive straight up there at the very beginning, and he could have just punched people in the face. Now, it's slightly different, like if they've got a bunch of 10s, right? And they go, oh, you got 2 waffles back here. Okay, yeah, you might not want to push through that alley. But it's about sort of picking and choosing, identifying where it's probable that you have a mismatch, and then exploiting that mismatch, right? And then don't hesitate. Like that E75 going in there, just straight bully, right? He's a 1100 win 8 player, right? Which is a decent player. I mean, he's not a bad player. But if he just does that every game, where he identifies the mismatch and goes in and punches people in the face, he's a purple player. Like that's literally all there is to it.
It's a trap!
Aim time on this gun is still really long. And so as far as like
it's a trap!
The sort of flow tree, I think it's difficult to say, oh, well, there's a specific flow tree. Like, my flow tree is generally try to create a situation that's advantageous for my team, which is usually get myself in a position that's so annoying that tanks have to YOLO me to kill me, which allows my team to get free damage. That happens a lot, but short of that, it's about creating mismatches. It's looking for where you have an advantage and then exploiting that advantage. Like that's all that it really is, and a lot of that can be done simply by looking at the mini map. Yeah, and like I said, like as you guys know, I'm not a very good player. Like I don't have tremendous physical skills. I don't have very good aim. I don't have very good reaction time. What's going on with the? Oh, there we go. My replay froze there for a second. It's not like I have very good reaction time or aim or anything like that. But I just look at the game and I think about where we have advantages or where we don't have advantages. And so this is the same sort of thing. Like I'm going to play the middle here. We have a slightly stronger comp than them to win the West. So I'm looking and seeing what goes West and what doesn't go West, right? And so this is very straightforward. So this is a game where I don't do anything, but I still play an important role in the game, right? A tree just went down back there, so I know there's something back there. I know that something is not the LCCD because the tree went the other way, so it was probably that 2801. So I know that they got a couple light tanks up here. Okay, and then again, this is the pivotal 30 to 60 seconds in the game. Look and see what your team is doing. We sent a bunch of light tanks to the east, which is I don't ever think is a good play for a light tank, but okay, whatever. But the important thing to note is that we sent all of the key tanks that we needed to the west, right? All of our high tier mediums, the Patton, PTA, E50, they all went east here, right? And that's going to be good depending on what they spot. And this is why, if you're one of these light tanks, if you're a light tank that came up here and spotted for these guys, that's important for them, right? Because if that light tank pops over here and literally 15 tanks from their team is right here, okay, these guys know what they're dealing with, and that's why intel is important. So I'm going to play this middle area here for a couple of reasons. One, I don't want any light tanks to get through, but two, because I can, depending on what they commit to the middle, I can be an annoyance from the middle. And so what all I want to do is just be patient for a little bit until we get some intel. Our light tanks aren't actually even spotting on this side, but our Patton should be into a position where he can spot pretty soon. Right? So their T-54 is on this side, which is important, right? So when these guys look at this, and again, this is one of those things where if you're this E-50 that's driving along right here, you've got nothing better to do while you're just driving along here. So watch the mini-map. When this T-54 pops up over here, that's good, because you know that he's not over here. So the only thing that can be in front of you that you know, has any reasonable amount of speed is this T-54E1, and it's going to take him a while to get there. Alright, and I don't need to YOLO this 2801. We don't know what else is behind him yet. We're not in any threat, any danger from any side, so there's no reason for me to rush. Okay, so our Patton has gone to a position where he can now spot IS-5, T-34. That's maybe a problem. It depends on what they have behind them. We have our IS-8 on this side. Our Type 1 into this middle area. Our PTA has stayed back instead of pushing forward with these guys. So this looks a little bit more tense, right? We've got 3 9s here, though, so that's not too bad. So this is something that I want to keep my eye on. But I can't really help them per se. But like if more of their tanks appear right here, then I need to probe through this middle over here. If it looks like we're doing okay on this side, then I can be a little bit more conservative over here. Our light tank over here got killed. The rest of our team is pretty much camping on this side, so I can't really depend on us to do much or get much intel on the east.
It's a
right?
trap!
But these guys are getting whittled down, like this T-34 is getting whittled down, so I'm not too worried about that. T-54E1 pulled up next to me, which is fine. And again, so I don't really have any backup. Our guys are campy, but they're not camping in a position where they can actually cover anybody. Like this Roomba isn't in a position to shoot this T-54E1. The GW Tiger is, and theoretically the FV-207 is, but neither of them are probably aimed in onto my area, which is fine, not too much of a concern. He doesn't have very good shots on me, so I'm not going to bother repairing the track. So I know that the T-54E1 is over here. The 2801 was over here. He isn't necessarily still over there. But when I look at the map, you know, what I see is that we've pushed into this area. We've taken down the IS-5. The T-34 is presumably about to die. They don't really have a whole lot behind them supporting them, right? Because nothing got lit shooting our guys. When you look at the health of our guys, other than the Patton, everybody's nice and full. Not really worried about health. Our T-59, our Type 59 is still in this middle-ish area. I'm not too concerned. I'm kind of ISO'd right here because these guys can't really support me other than the artillery. Right? So I need to just be patient here. And that's when the T-49 I think rolls up down there. So we're pushing through here. So all I'm doing is the same thing that we've been preaching since the beginning, which is you want to win one side before you lose the other. And I'm watching this side and I'm going, okay, it looks like we have this side under control. So all I need to do is not lose in the middle, make sure we don't lose on the east, right? That's all that I need to do. Right? If I was in a better position, or if this T-54E1 wasn't right up against me and I needed to move, then I can move out. But right now I'm kind of pinned anyways. But since we're winning, it's okay if I'm pinned in here. And here goes the T-49, which I don't see because I was waiting for this 1375, and then I'm like, oh crap, this T-49 got me. And then again, I'm outnumbered in this middle. All they really have to do is just push me, right? They just have to push me, but they don't. And that's fine for me, right? And again, all I have to do is be patient. That LTTB is trying to go up around this inside, but that's fine. They're starting to push through over here, but we've already won over on this west side, so I'm not too concerned about that. Our artillery can shoot this T-54E1. So I'm just going to keep him tracked out here for as long as I can. I already know that he fired at least one. There's another one. There's his third one. I think he's got one more. Right, and so I can keep him tracked until the cows come home. Unless he tracks and after. He's safe. But somebody else hit him, so GG. And then again, so we won this side before we lost this side, and a large part of the when you look at the tanks that they have over here, they lost this side. This was just a lack of will, right? We literally this light tank was the furthest person forward. He got killed early, and then they just kind of sat in the back until they lost the west, and then they pushed in, right? And then now it's too late. Is the problem, because we've already won our numbers game over here. So all these guys have to do is come back. Right? And so what we're looking at here is, it's not like we have a huge health advantage or anything like that. What we're looking at here is, do these guys continue to put cap pressure and screen? That might create problems. Right. And then so if you guys remember, when I got over here during the stream earlier tonight when we were talking about it, there's no pressure on me, right? I don't need to drive over here to run in and shoot these guys because they're not putting any cap pressure on us. So we don't have the numbers still right here, right? There's a IS-8, there's a Roomba, we've got a couple guys down here, but they've got enough here that if we just push in there, they can still wallop us. But there's no pressure for us to push into there, right? There's no incentive for us to push into there. So we can just wait. We can wait for the 46 patent. We can wait for the E50. We can wait for the PTA to kill this LTTB, right? We've got all this time because there's no pressure on us at all. And if you guys recall during the game, I was saying what we need to wait for is this 1390 because he cleared out through this area. The 1390 basically came through here and he cleared out this area. And so once he gets to over here, he's going to be able to clear out the artillery. And then it's just a matter then of all direct fire. We've got them basically encapsulated. We've got them under control. They're locked down. It's not like they can escape. 1390 is now on their artillery. And then it's just a matter of pushing into them smartly, which I think we run into the IS-8 here. And I was like, oops. Yeah, he just came across here.
It's a trap!
He gets his little
We didn't even scratch them.
IS-8. I'm sorry, his little HE shot on us. I don't understand that either. And then, but the 1390 is taking down the artillery. And then now look at this. Now it's much more advantageous. See how we've got 5 or 6 guys on this side, and we've got 2 more guys on that side, right? So we need to just sweep through here, and that's GG, right? And a lot of that occurs because these guys didn't put any pressure on us. There's no pressure on us to do anything else other than exactly what we did, and that's always a problem.
It's a trap!
And so even though I didn't do very much in this game, you know, I still played my role. I didn't get myself killed in the middle. We were able to tie up some people, and we were able to watch the game unfold and understand that, okay, we're winning over here. I don't need to do anything from the middle. And again, it was one of those situations where if we started losing on this west side, or if I thought we might lose on this west side, even if I got shot by some of their tanks, I would have to try to get out there. Right? But there was no reason for me to do that. We didn't need to do that. Okay. It's the same thing. And it reminds me of that Steps game that we had. I think it. And so we'll talk about this a lot in the stream, but in this particular case, especially on Steps encounter, it's about applying pressure in the right places. And so as far as a mindset, I always think the same thing. And again, 30, 60 seconds into the game, see what your team is doing, right? So it's 30 seconds into the game. We sent it, about a third, a little bit. You'll see that we end up getting a lot of H-line campers. But, we sent a couple people forward. The Foch at least moved pretty far forward, which I don't think is super great for him, but, whatever. But we've sent a good portion of our team east, which is, unfortunately, you don't nearly see enough on encounter Steps. But that's okay. And then all that I'm doing, right, is I'm counting. And if you guys remember from this was yesterday's stream, what I was saying is that as these guys sort of appear on the east, a lot of their weight appears on this east, right? There's 2 tier 10s on both sides. Both of their tier 10s are on this east, right? And they've got a bunch of 8s that are lit so far. We see an IS-8 going across. Where this WZ-132 isn't the best spotting area, but it's workable if you know how to use it. So we know some of the intel about what's over here already. And then when you look at our team, right, So I went low ground because the Waffles does not do well on open plains. It is like a very fat and slow wildebeest. You don't want to get picked off, but it is very dangerous at the right time. We've got a lot of weight on this bottom here, and it's more than enough to just push into this Lorraine. But that's not really what I want to talk about. So, well, if you're this T69, don't try to trade with a Waffle. Yes, you will get as many shots of damage as the Waffle does, but the Waffle will just completely decimate you. Oh, I skipped forward too far. Please hold. We gotta go back.
It's a trap!
And so we just had so many guys on the low ground. They've got enough guys over here, right? They put a Panther 2 and a T-34 in the middle, and whatever. We've got enough guys here. We just need to have the fortitude. And this is one of the things where I'll flank with the Waffle. I don't normally recommend flanking with the Waffle. I don't think it's a very strong flanking tank. But they didn't really leave a whole lot up here, right? And these guys, we've got some guys on the cap, but you don't necessarily want to be on the cap. You want to clear this first, and then you want to put on the cap pressure. And that's pretty much how steps should run. And so there's a couple of ways to play steps. There's basically 3 different levels, I think of it. There's this lower level where this cap zone is. There's a middle level where I'm at right now. And then there's this sort of upper level here, right? This ridge area that extends back there on that side and back there on that side. Right? And so I'm on the middle level right now. And so it's very easy to flank people on this lower level by coming through the middle. It's very easy to flank people on the middle level by coming through the top. And so like one of the popular things, especially like in strongholds or tournament play, is that if you know that they're on the mid or the bottom here, you can actually sneak your tanks up through here and come around behind them and just get them in a pincer, right? And that forces them to have to push in order to get away. But in this case, I'm just going to push over here because I know that they really can't stop me. I didn't even know they had to have this SU-100 over here, but that's okay. Doesn't really matter. And then this is just math. I have 3 shells. I know I need 1 shell to kill the T-34. So that means I have 2 shells for the... Oops. So I have 2 shells for the IS-8, T-10. I gotta start calling it T-10. And then now, here's what's important. So, what we've been talking about is winning your side before you lose the other and putting pressure on. Right, and so the thing is that so we've got pressure on. So even if these guys did not get in the cap at the start, even if they just got in the cap now when we cleared it, we've got a huge advantage in the game because all these tanks need to drive out all the way over here in order to get to us. Right, there's a Panther 2 that's in the middle, and so when I look at this, it's very easy for us to get 3 on cap. Even 2 on cap will be fine, given the speed of the tanks that are left. And then all I have to do is just completely screen. Right. And this is what we say is that if you don't send enough people to the east and the other team wins the east with any amount of speed, right? And we didn't win that very quickly. It took us like almost 4 minutes, 3.5 minutes to clear this out, which isn't a whole lot of time given the proximity of these 2 areas, right? One spawn's right there, one spawn's right there. The spawns are literally, 350, 400 meters apart from each other. Right? If it was flat ground, you could spot people in the spawns, or if there wasn't obstruction, you could spot people in the spawns. Right? So it's close. This is the far one, but we still wrap this up. Not as quickly as I would have liked given our numbers, but quickly enough. And then it's just about screening. And then there's literally, and I said this during the stream, but there's literally nothing that these guys can do. There's nothing that they can do. They might as well have been AFK the entire game in their spawn because they do not have an effect on the outcome of this game. And that's the danger of not playing this side.
It's a trap!
Right, so the Panther 2, which was in the middle, ended up moving to the south. The T-32 tried to move across. But these are the only guys that can potentially even get shot. Right? And then even if we only had 2 guys on cap, and even if we didn't cap until we cleared out this side, right, the cap would already be halfway down. Even the IS-7, not going to be fast enough to get that. Right, GG. And so it's not just about winning your side. It's about winning sort of strategic areas and putting some sort of pressure on the enemy team, right? And that pressure might be cap pressure. That pressure might just be flanking fire. But putting pressure on the enemy team forces them to play into your hands. It forces them to, like that T-32 has to drive across an open plane. The Panther has to come driving across an open plane. But it's the same thing from the other side, right? If you're their team on that map and you're going to play that west, you got to play it fast. Because if your team loses on that east, you're not going to have time to save it. All right. And it's the same thing. It's like, one of the things that we talk about when we play the T-95 is that the T-95, you really have to plan ahead. You have to be thinking not just about what's going to happen in your immediate future, but you have to be thinking about what's going to happen in 2 or 3 minutes in the future. Because if you have to move someplace in the T-95, it's going to take you a butt-ass long time. And it's the same thing playing that steps. If you need to move from one side of the map all the way to the other side of the map, you need to know that minutes in advance. So if you're those guys, if you're the enemy team from that steps game playing that, and you're seeing us crush you on the east, it doesn't matter what you were doing on the west. You got to go east. You got to just drop it and go east because you're going to lose the game. And that's why I always say that on steps encounter, if you send your team east, as long as you push when you have an advantage, like we had an advantage on our east, right? And we just pushed in and killed them. As long as you do that, whichever team does that, most likely is going to win. Because it's just too easy. It's too easy to defend people trying to come back. But anyways, my sort of overall theme that I was going to get to was, as far as my thinking as a paradigm of playing any of the games, it's basically that. It's, win one side before you lose the other. That dictates a lot of victories in these random battles. And whether you win that side because of
It's a trap!
You have overwhelming numbers, because you win one side because the other team was foolish, or whatever it takes to win. That's really what you're
It's a trap!
I mean, I don't quite break it down to that detail, but usually, what I've gotten used to doing, and this is more difficult than most people tend to realize, but what I got used to doing was, I'll play something in the background, but what I sort of got used to doing was, when we first started streaming, the difficult part to me, the challenging part to me, was playing and narrating at the same time. It's like doing play-by-play while you're actually playing the game. And that's a little bit difficult, but when I play the game and I'm streaming and I'm talking to you guys, that's pretty much what I'm thinking. It's not, necessarily fully formed out, but it's usually, I think that we have an advantage on this side, or I think we have an advantage in this area, or I think that their defense is weak in this area, so I'm going to go check it out, see if I can probe it. A lot of that is, and one of the things that we talk about a bit in the game is the advantage of having intel, the advantage of knowing where your enemy team is going, and how that helps you as an individual. And that's why, that along with looking and seeing where your team is going, what your team is doing. And I think that solves a lot of things, because you basically, I think of it kind of like a scale, one of those two-sided scales where if a bunch of your team goes to one side, that side is pretty heavy. You want to make sure that you can, unless their team actually has even more on that side, you want to make sure that you can bully there. Similarly, like if in that T-69 game on the Abbey, if you go to one side and you have very little support, or the T-54 game on Serene Coast, T-54E1 game on Serene Coast, you're just looking to slow them down, and you're watching the map to make sure that you're winning the other side still, but you're just looking to delay them as long as possible. And a lot of times you'll get into situations like that. If you're in faster tanks, you could run away, right? But if you're in slower tanks, or sometimes you're pinned, you gotta stay there. And them's the breaks. But that's pretty much what the game comes down to. It's try to not necessarily think of everything in great detail as it occurs, but rather just sort of have a simple paradigm in mind. Like my simple paradigm is push where you have an advantage and try to keep your teammates alive. That's pretty much, make any sacrifice that your teammates make, foolishly or not. Sometimes it's foolish, sometimes it's noble.
It's a trap!
Either way, just make sure that you can take advantage of it. And when given shooting gallery, yeah, I mean, I think most people do fundamentally what I say. Like that's how they might not vocalize it in the same way, but most good players do what I'm talking about. I'm just aware of what I'm looking for, and I'm looking for like certain situations. Like this actually is not a really advantageous situation for us, even though we've got them encapsulated. But it's one of those things where I think you just need to. I think some of it is experience, but I mean, I think that if you just break down the game, and this is one of the benefits of doing the replay reviews when we look at games and things like that of your own gameplay. You should be able to pick out, here's where I made a mistake, here's where I traded poorly, here's where I did, I could have pushed in here to save this guy. You want to look for things like that, and I think that identifying mistakes, whether you win or lose a game, identifying mistakes and correcting it, and it's more of not just it's correcting that mentally, just okay, I need to make sure that I, it's not necessarily on El Haloof when I'm playing the 2 line against an STA and a T-32, I need to try to keep this guy. It's not that detailed. It's more of just like when we're overwhelmed here, I need to make sure that I don't, lose too much health. That I don't. Our goal right now isn't to kill all of these guys. It's even though we've got good position. Right? You look at the health. The Type 59 is about to die. I'm pretty low. This T-34-3 is not a very good player trying to take these guys on frontally. Although he can damage the STA one pretty easily. But what I'm looking to do here is just take advantage of the fact that these guys are pushing into this T-34-3 while not getting killed by the Tiger 2. And sometimes that's all you can do. Sometimes all you can do is not get yourself killed. But you still want to try to get as much damage in while you can. I know that I can get some shots on these guys, and they won't really have very good shots on me. And that's all we're looking to do. And so if you take anything from this replay, I might make this replay into a highlight, not because I do anything spectacularly, but what you'll notice is how I run away from these guys, how I position myself so it's not easy for them to just own me. Right, this E25 comes and pushes me here, and I don't sit here and try to trade with them. Right, I just go out towards this STA. Our RD almost hit me there. Our FP304 almost hit me, but that's okay. Right, and all I did was just position myself away from that because I knew that we were going to lose the seal on the other edge. And so I think that, when you make those corrections mentally in terms of just, okay, in this type of situation, I got to stay alive. In this type of situation, I got to be more aggressive. It doesn't have to be very specific. Against a Tiger 2 STA and a T-32, I need to do this. It shouldn't be that specific. It should be, and this goes back to what we were saying about, win one side before you lose the other. We've already lost the other side, so I'm not that worried about that. But I need to try to make sure that we don't lose this side just so that we have a chance to go back. Because if we lose here or if I die here, we're going to lose. And so I see this Tiger 2 is pushing over towards me, so I'm not going to sit here and try and trade with him. I'm just going to bail. And then I'm just looking for a seam. I know where the Tiger 2 is. I know where the E25 is. These guys should be able to trade against an E25 as long as the Tiger 2 doesn't interfere. I need to worry about artillery and these tank destroyers moving over to this area where they can shoot into my position. I just wanted to see if the Tiger 2 is pushing over here. And see how our 304 is pushing in, so I'm just okay, well, This is the game right here, right? So that's what I'm thinking when this happens. I'm thinking, well, this is the game. Either we can beat this Tiger 2 and we have a chance, or we lose to this Tiger 2 and the game is gone. So get your head in the game.
It's a trap!
On va la voir. Continue à tirer. Véhicule ennemi hors de combat.
You can watch your replays. I mean, it depends on how much you feel like you're getting out of it. Like, there's a certain point where, if you don't have the experience to recognize the mistakes, you'll watch the replays, but you'll be like, all right, I don't know what I did wrong there. And that's why it's beneficial to have people who've watched or who've played a lot of games like me actually review the games, because I can look at it and be like, oh yeah, you should have just bullied there, right? You should have just owned that guy, or whatever. And so, but I think having that, I mean, I'm at the point now where I've seen enough games that if I watch my own replays, I go, oh yeah, I screwed up there, or I did this right here, or did this wrong here. And again, it's not something that's specific to World of Tanks. So it's like, if you watch me play Armored Warfare, if you watch me play any of these sort of team-based shooter games, like, it's the same theories. The get a local advantage, exploit local advantage, relocate to where you can get your next advantage. Right? That's all a lot of these games boil down to in terms of pub play. Organized play is slightly different, right? Because you're trying to work it within a certain team frame, so you're working towards some goal. With pubs, you're more of playing off of what other people do, and so it requires a little bit more reading in terms of being familiar with what pubs are going to try to do. Yeah, I mean, learning to play the game well is not necessarily learning to aim. So much of the game is just positioning. Something that we talk about a lot in the stream, but, I'd rather have okay players in good positions than good players in okay positions. The positioning becomes really important. Controlling strategically important areas of the map, like controlling this 2 line on El Haluf, is important. And having these advantages sort of stacks the odds in the favor of your team. And that's really what you're looking to do, is try to create these situations that your team can exploit. Yeah, learning to aim doesn't hurt. Learning armor layouts doesn't hurt. But I'm just saying is that positioning, I think, is really neglected in that sense. And people don't consider that. And it's not just, where do I go at the start of the map? So much of it is how do you play off of your yeah, Kurgosh. I mean, no, certainly. Don't get me wrong. Aiming is good, but there's a certain point where aiming is diminishing returns. I'm not a very good aimer, but there's not a whole lot of players that are that much better than me, even despite the fact that they aim significantly better than me. If that makes any sense. So there's a certain point where your aim is good enough.
It's a trap!
So we're gonna jump forward in this game a little bit.
It's a trap!
So right here, this is what we were talking about, and as far as positioning, see how these guys are back here. See how this T-30 is up here. These guys absolutely cannot help their T-30. These guys can just drive in on this T-30. Nothing that anybody can do about it. And again, as far as positioning, this is what I talk about a lot in the game, where you don't want to be waiting for people to die before you get shots, right? If this T-30 is forward, I'm not asking you to drive in front of the T-30 and take hits for him, but I'm just asking you that if this T-30 gets pushed, that you be in a position where you can punish. You can punish those people that try to push that T-30. And I think that's what you have to part of what you have to look to do, especially if you play a second line tank. You don't want to be. A seam is just a weakness in somebody's defense. And so, like, in this game, the seam was down this one line, right? So basically they allowed I think a lot of about a lot of things in terms of like sports defenses, because it's a game that's somewhat similar in terms of like man-to-man coverage. You can think of it like basketball as well, I suppose.
It's a trap!
So the seam that they leave here, right, that we end up exploiting, is that they've got some guys back here. They got the WC 104. They haven't pushed anybody forward yet, at least not that the T-30 is spotted, so we're going to push it here. When we push it here, we're going to see where that WC 111 is.
It's a trap!
And the seam ends up being on this one line right here, because I'm just going to poke out here and see if I get lit. No, don't get lit. Okay, let's move forward here. Right, and so I consider that a seam, because what that allows me to do is get into this position where, one, I can shoot across on this side. I can clear this alley, right, with very little support, right? I'm in a light tank right now. Right, and there's nobody stopping me from my position right now. There's no punishment for me being in my position. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of reward because our guys are still far behind. But like, this is a seam in the defense, because I've gotten myself into a position where I can take map control. And this alley, despite the fact that it is vulnerable to getting shot from this 6 line, this alley is actually pretty good to own, because it allows you to be in a position where you can charge into here next, especially if you've got numbers, and just wreck these guys without a whole lot of them getting a whole lot of help from the rest of their team. And so that's what I consider to be a seam in the defense. And so, like, especially if I'm in a medium tank, like, you'll see that I look to exploit that as much as possible. Actually, in pretty much all my tanks, even in heavy tanks as well. That's what you do. It's the same thing, you know, on that Stalingrad game. We're going back to the same games, but it's just because I think of them as they're recent in my mind, right? Where that E75 drove up through, that E75 just drives up a seam, and again, this was back when I was talking about deflections and defense, and he basically just bullies the hell out of the guys that are in front of him, right? And that's really what you're looking to create. If you can create those situations consistently for yourself, then you're gonna end up contributing to your team. Like that, it's incredibly helpful for your team if you exploit those things.
It's a trap! It's a trap!
We'll conveniently skip by the...
It's a trap!
Okay, so now what happens is that we know that they've got some guys on this west side here. We know that they've got some guys on the east side here. I can keep these guys lit. Watch it, this E75, all he does, just literally drives up, 70 meters this way and just starts bullying people. Like, that's all he did. He doesn't get shot on the way in. He doesn't even get lit on the way in, I don't think. Oh, no, he probably got lit right there. And then he just comes in through this side, and he's just straight bully. Straight bully. He gets shot by their SP1C a few times. But then that's, again, he exploited a seam in their defense, right? He's up against a bunch of guys that really can't compete with him. This was a mistake. See how he turned his armor? Like, just give the SP1C his shots. I mean, he's got a clip, and it's going to hurt a little bit, but you're not going to get shot by the heavies. I mean, these guys are going to struggle to pen the E7. The IS-3 can pen him through the lower plate, but if he turns sideways, he's definitely going to be able to pen you. So the way that he's turned right now, I mean, the IS-3 gave up on trying to shoot him. He did try to take a snapshot just before this, but he gave up on trying to shoot this E75 right now, and he's basically just fixated on me. So I'm not pushing forward here. I don't need to press this advantage. This E75 can bully all on his own. But he basically drove up there more or less by himself. I mean, this what is this guy? This Tiger 2 is coming up behind him, but that's pretty late in the game. But he exploited a seam, just drove in, and now he's up against a bunch of tanks that he can bully. He probably should have. Well, I mean, he probably should have moved a little bit more that way. But, anyways, take your medicine from the SP1C. It doesn't really matter, and just straight bully. He just straight bullies these guys, and that's what you have to do. Is just find those seams and find